I, 25F, am my partner's, 33M, family scapegoat. How do I address this in couples therapy? Summary. My partner's aunts have bullied me for years, and my partner has never defended me. The situation escalated when they targeted my grieving family, leading me to become the family scapegoat. Now, my partner blames me for his family's problems. How can I effectively confront his toxic family in couples therapy? I never anticipated becoming a scapegoat as an in-law. It began 4 years ago when I had a conflict with my partner's cousin's girlfriend. We mutually agreed to part ways and not involve anyone else. However, she started to spread falsehoods about me to my partner's family. These fabrications rapidly spread throughout his vast, interconnected family, and by the time they reached me and my partner, we were the last to learn of them. By then, a significant portion of his family had removed me from all social media platforms. As much as I wanted to defend myself, I hoped that the truth would eventually come to light and reveal my true character. My partner chose to take the high road by ignoring the situation until someone would inquire. Unfortunately, no one did. It was a gradual, silent disconnect, with the only noticeable disturbance being the persistent rumors circulating about me among family, friends, and the community. My partner and his cousin grew distant. His parents stopped communicating with their aunt and uncle. His aunts, 4 in total, made it clear through their words and actions that they despised me at every opportunity. For 3.5 years, I endured relentless bullying. Aunts glaring at me and treating me like I was worthless in public settings. I can recall at least 10 instances. My partner's Aunt J gave me a disdainful look, and after rolling her eyes, whispered to another Aunt B. This made me break down in tears to my mother-in-law because the bullying felt profoundly unjust. Continuous rumors damaged my reputation to the extent that my potential practicum supervisor at a local school learned of them, which prevented me from obtaining that placement. It's a small community. One aunt made a habit of humiliating me by ignoring me whenever I greeted her. I would say, "Hi, how are you?" Yet she wouldn't even glance my way. This occurred multiple times, 5 to be exact, and even my partner noticed this disrespectful behavior. It continued until this year when I found myself working alongside her at a community event. I addressed her by name and asked a question, but she refused to acknowledge me. Her daughter ended up answering instead. Auntie M once spoke to me while I was pregnant and informed his family, in front of me, that she believed the rumors to be true and implied that my drama was tearing the family apart. Later, she sat next to me, spoke for some time, and then revealed she thought I was the cousin's girlfriend throughout our conversation, claiming I resembled her, and then laughed mockingly in my presence. Note, this was only my second meeting with Auntie M. On the same day, I borrowed a coffee cup from Auntie Mtke's daughter, and throughout the day she incessantly reminded me to return it, 4 times, as if I were likely to steal it. I communicated every instance of bullying, every glare, humiliation, rumor, and unspoken word to my partner. Over the 3 years, he never confronted his aunts about their treatment of me. He never sat down with his cousin and his aunt and uncle to set the record straight and dispel the rumors. He didn't make a public statement on their active family Facebook group to clarify my name or confront the bullying I faced. As a result, I became increasingly depressed, anxious, and felt unwelcome in this community. The relentless bullying from his aunts drove me to reconsider our relationship on several occasions. Finally, in June 2024, I reached my breaking point. We were at a community event where Auntie M was present. This was my 3rd interaction with her. 1.5 months prior, I had lost my mother unexpectedly and was deeply grieving. My family, including my younger sister and brother and Aunt S, drove 9 hours to join me at this event, marking my first opportunity to see them since the funeral. Auntie M stood behind their seats, uttering remarks that made them feel unwelcome and uncomfortable, even shaking one of the seats where my sister was sitting to prompt them to relocate. During this incident, I urged my partner to take some action. He refused, telling me to wait for his mother to handle it. As Auntie M continued to make comments to unsettle my family, I implored my partner again to intervene, but he still declined. My own Aunt S informed me they were moving seats because, apparently, we aren't allowed to sit here. I looked to my partner one last time, stating that Auntie M had just displaced my family from their seats, and he remained inactive, insisting I should wait for his mother. At that moment, I was exhausted from the bullying. I had endured at least 20 separate instances of mistreatment from his family, expecting to remain silent while my partner never defended me. I approached Auntie M and firmly told her that she had no right to displace my family. She responded with harsh messages, claiming she should have punched me in the face during our conversation. She accused me of being responsible for her family's discord, a consequence of the ridiculous rumor spread by the cousin's girlfriend years ago. I chose not to reply. Auntie M advised my partner against marrying me. I recognized the depth of pain this incident caused my partner, and I quickly apologized to him, despite feeling immensely frustrated that he hadn't stood by me. We organized a healing circle facilitated by his aunts, and I apologized to Auntie M for my admonishing tone. During this gathering, Auntie M accepted no responsibility for her actions. Instead, she mocked my deceased mother, stating, "I noticed a woman with gray hair near my seat referring to my Aunt S and thought that must be S mom. But then I remembered, oh right, her mom is dead." No one defended me or told her that was inappropriate, claimed that my sister, brother, and aunt were all delusional and hearing things. Declared, "I take no accountability, I did nothing wrong, I said nothing," and the family accepted her stance without question. Ultimately, only I expressed remorse. The hostility from his family intensified. More social media deletions, more rumors. My partner eventually posted on the family Facebook group, but it centered solely on how this situation impacted his mental health. When mentioning me, he minimized my experience by saying, "Mistakes were made, but I know that forgiveness will never be bestowed." I later expressed to him how deeply betrayed I felt because he posted without my consent, disappointed in his lack of defense of my character. My partner ended our engagement 4 months ago. Now, during minor disagreements, he consistently blames me for his family's rift and his perceived isolation. When I defend myself and remind him of the years of bullying and Auntie M's cruel comments about my deceased mother, he shuts down, deflects, and ultimately assigns blame to me. He conveys his unhappiness with me. I have never intended to cause strife within this family. Over the years, I approached gatherings with a smile, striving to be kind and unobtrusive, genuinely believing that one day his family would appreciate the real me. To be held responsible for the family's dysfunction and for my partner's isolation is to depict a person I do not recognize. This is not who I am, nor is it reflective of my actions. It frustrates me immensely that he perceives it this way. Thus, I have several reflections. I am experiencing a heartache unlike anything I have encountered before. I have become the scapegoat within my in-laws family. I endured relentless bullying from his family until they targeted my grieving family, with my partner refusing to intervene. His aunts will never accept accountability. It is simpler for them to blame me rather than confront their own toxicity. The gaslighting from his family is so profound that it has affected both my partners and even my mind. I document these events in detail because I fear I may be losing my sanity. I know I cannot possibly be solely to blame for what has transpired. We are commencing couples therapy this month, but whenever I attempt to address this situation, I feel nauseous and faint. I don't know. Perhaps this will become a message to the void. I am concerned that if my partner never acknowledges the toxicity, enmeshment, and lack of boundaries and respect within his family, I may ultimately have no choice but to raise my children as a single mother. I love my partner deeply, but this situation has shattered my mental well-being. Edit. Cousin and Aunt J have a history of silently cutting off my partner since he was just 15 due to a rumor spread by that cousin. Aunt M has previously attacked an outsider like me. She confronted my partner's older cousin, the son of the aunt who ignores me, by bringing up his partner's prior DUI, which resulted in a fatality within her family, suggesting this woman should not marry into the family. The cousin completely severed ties with Aunt M and went on to marry his partner. Overall, this family and all the aunts have a history of meddling in family relationships and bullying their in-laws. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for wanting to go no contact with my brother-in-law because he got mad that my husband called a type of meat the wrong name? This is honestly such an absurd story, and it has escalated into a significant family debate over meat. I wish I could say I am joking. My husband and I both listen to many Reddit storytelling podcasts and have previously joked about sharing this story just to gather opinions, but we never did until now. The reason is that we had an argument with his parents last night over this ridiculous situation again, and although we have received numerous opinions from our other friends and family who consistently affirm that we are not in the wrong, it would be nice to finally hear from a more neutral source. Now, to the story. It is lengthy, so I apologize. Perhaps I have overexplained a bit. I hope you don't mind, but I felt I was keeping it concise since there were many other things that transpired. In June 2024, we traveled to Minnesota. Honestly, we were not keen on going, primarily because vacation time is limited, and we did not want to spend it in a state we have both visited before and do not particularly enjoy. Still, we went because my husband's parents wanted to see both of their children simultaneously, which they rarely get to do. My husband's sister lives in Minnesota, we reside in Georgia, and his parents are in California. Since my sister-in-law has 2 young children, we thought flying with 2 kids, aged 2 and 5, I believe could be challenging, so we ultimately decided to do what was easiest for everyone. I have an 8-year-old daughter as well. So we went, and honestly, the first few hours were pleasant and enjoyable. However, I soon began to notice my sister-in-law's husband disrespecting their mother frequently. I remained silent, as it didn't seem necessary at that moment. She was defending herself adequately, and I didn't want to provoke a situation that didn't require stirring up. Now, onto the drama. On the first night we were there, I decided to take a shower. When I finished and stepped out, I could hear shouting. After drying off, I went downstairs and found my sister-in-law's husband, whom I will refer to as D for brevity, yelling in my husband's, whom I will call M, face about how foolish he was, and M asked him to step back. I glanced around and noticed that my father-in-law and sister-in-law were both present, simply observing the confrontation. I stood there momentarily, trying to comprehend what was happening. I am not one for confrontation, so I felt a bit anxious. M is usually a very gentle and understanding person, so watching him become upset was shocking. I was mentally preparing myself to intervene, but I was unsure how to proceed at that moment. I was just listening as M attempted to reason, saying things like, "I understand, but D, please step back. I am telling you I am done with this conversation," while D continued to yell. Eventually, my husband declared, "Okay, D, just leave me alone," and walked away. The exchange unfolded rapidly. I'm not certain how long the argument lasted before I came downstairs. A little more context that I neglected to mention. D works in the dairy industry. He is a salesman and has also artificially inseminated cows and has boasted about being shoulder deep in a cow, which is very off-putting. He is extremely passionate about beef, and the couple has previously informed M that they purchase an entire cow's worth of meat each year to avoid having to buy meat again for a while. I don't recall their exact phrasing, but that is the gist of it. Anyway, while my sister-in-law was cooking, M attempted to make small talk with her since they don't communicate frequently and asked, "So you buy a whole cow and eat that meat throughout the entire year? That's amazing." In swoops D, looking offended. He insists, "It's not called a cow. A cow is a female that has given birth. The meat we consume is called steer. Use its proper name." M initially thought he was joking and laughed it off, but D continued to rant about how ignorant people are and how they should be aware of proper terminology. M defended himself, replying, "Okay, dude, I didn't know," and somehow it escalated into the scene I had witnessed. Everything quieted down for the night, but the next morning I woke up, brushed my teeth, and heard them arguing again. This time, apparently M woke up before me and went downstairs to get his morning coffee. The very first thing D did was invade his space and yell, "By the way," before launching into the same cow-steer argument again. My husband replied, "D, it's early in the morning and I haven't even had my coffee yet." D retorted, "It's not early, it's 8 a.m. Call me crazy, but for many people, that is early in the morning, especially on vacation, right?" This time I interjected, telling them to stop arguing as they were ruining the trip for Mtik's parents. D ignored me and walked away. Throughout the entire trip, we followed their lead on various activities. I only learned after the trip that my sister-in-law stated we were adhering to their schedule because she has younger children. Despite having a child myself, I felt I had no say in what we did at any point. I understand that managing two small children is more challenging, but even a simple, "Hey, how do you feel about doing this?" would have been considerate. Additionally, they are incredibly judgmental about everything everyone does. Em and I are night owls and enjoy staying up after our daughter goes to bed to watch shows together. If he isn't working, we usually wake up around 9 or 10 a.m. However, to these individuals, if you do not wake up at the crack of dawn, you are deemed lazy and perceived as ruining the day. They have berated Em and my sister-in-law's mother for waking up at 10 a.m. once, even though she is from the West Coast and was visiting them. My sister-in-law has mentioned they purposely do not visit Em and my sister-in-law's parents often, citing their mother's annoying behavior. Despite finding their mother irritating, they have attempted to persuade her to leave California and move to rural Minnesota so they can babysit their grandchildren. We managed to dissuade them, reasoning that they should remain near most of their family rather than be expected to serve as babysitters at the ages of 65 and 67. The situation was truly outrageous, and D never apologized for his actions. In fact, he expects M to apologize for disrespecting him. M and I have decided that we want no contact with D. Any civil discussion with him isn't even a possibility, even if M were inclined to consider it, but to be honest, he is not. This was his final straw. We recognize that my sister-in-law and D are a package deal, which likely means we will not see them again. However, M will still communicate with his sister and not completely sever ties with her. He cares for his sister, but feels he should not have to endure D-tick's nonsense, as he habitually instigates arguments and belittles their mother. I had never met D before this trip, so I cannot comment on the history of past events. All I know is that this situation was significant enough for me to want no contact, especially given the expected apology directed at us. This topic arose in a phone conversation last night, during which Mtik's father insisted that families should forgive one another and claimed we are being unreasonable. His mother grew increasingly angry and told him to man up, get over it, and stop holding on to negative feelings for no reason. We have tried to convey that our decision is merely to protect ourselves, our inner peace, and not to squander the limited vacation time available to Americans with individuals we prefer to avoid. I acknowledge that I am likely biased because he is my husband, but he is my best friend, and I know him better than anyone. It takes a great deal to push him to this point. He possesses a long fuse and is always so kind and understanding. Witnessing him angry was genuinely new to me, and it was the first time I have seen him react that way. He typically does not show frustration with everyday life problems. Last night, my in-laws kept asking questions like, "But what are we supposed to do during holidays?" As if we were asking them to choose between us, but that is not our intention. We do not even mind if they visit us on holidays, since we typically visit them throughout the year anyway. D and my sister-in-law have not visited them in approximately 2 to 3 years. The parents consistently have to travel to see them. Thus, this unfortunate situation is now creating tension with my in-laws, as if it is our fault, and we cannot comprehend why we should connect with someone who disrupts our peace. So, Reddit, are we the antagonists? Should M just apologize? It feels like I was attempting to condense the story a bit for brevity, but this is essentially what transpired. I was not involved in the argument, and M is currently at work, so he cannot detail the exact confrontation for me. I was listening to a Reddit Stories podcast and finally decided, okay, I'm going to share it. Other disrespectful comments made by D throughout the trip also went unaddressed because we felt sympathy for Mtik's parents. If you would like me to elaborate, I can certainly do that. Edit. I realize that some individuals may be confused, and I should have mentioned this from the outset, so my apologies. We stayed in an Airbnb. Story 3. My BF, M27, says that I, F29, always cause fights, and I think I now just immediately trigger him. How can I work on not being a trigger for him? Specific question. What are the various ways I can address anything perceived as a problem without causing an explosive reaction? How can I avoid being a trigger for my boyfriend? Am I the problem? How frequently do individuals typically raise these concerns with their partners? I do not want him to feel as though he can never do anything right. Relationship history. My boyfriend and I have been in a relationship for 2.5 years. During the initial year, we got along superbly, and I felt I could share anything with him without facing judgment, and it seemed reciprocal. Unfortunately, we began encountering difficulties when I voiced any preferences he wasn't following, for example, when I asked for assistance around the apartment. Over the last few months, whenever I request changes from him, our discussions escalate into me crying or yelling, while he responds with yelling, pacing, and mocking responses. He has claimed that my manner of communicating issues is always poor, suggesting that if I had expressed it this way, it would not have led to a conflict. For instance, there were 2 significant matters I attempted to discuss with him in recent months. 1. I have been doing the grocery shopping on Sundays and providing food for both of us. When I suggested we establish a plan for dividing grocery costs and discussing finances, he reacted angrily, saying my approach was intended to humiliate him. He remarked, "No one asked you to buy snacks at the store. Are you now holding this against me?" Yet, even when I buy food for myself, he rummages through the cabinets and eats my food. It seems to me that it is basic courtesy to contribute a little. Additionally, I've been paying a larger share of the rent, $65.35, to assist him, as well as covering gas, electric, and water bills. He concluded our dialogue by stating he doesn't have money for food. However, he still manages to go on trips with friends, which he financed by borrowing from his parents, and also participates in gambling online. 2. I requested his help with cleaning the apartment since he tends to leave things scattered around for over a week. When I expressed my need for assistance, because the current cleaning and cooking responsibilities are overwhelming for me, he responded by listing all the things he does, a common tactic he uses during disagreements, and insisted that I was mistaken. I often remind him there does not need to be a right or wrong. I simply want help and would like to discuss who is responsible for which chores. He agreed to sweep and wipe down the trash, but he continues to neglect both tasks. I even tried waiting 2 weeks while continually cleaning the same area myself in preparation for our meals. As time went on, our arguments escalated to the point where I was just crying while explaining my concerns, and he would say, "You should see how ridiculous you look right now," or laugh during my explanations. I informed him that if he continued to speak to me in that manner, I would consider leaving the relationship, to which he dismissively replied, "Yeah, right," and laughed. Later that day, I initiated a conversation with his mother regarding effective communication methods at home. When she requested specific examples, I shared those 2 instances. Naturally, this backfired, and he was furious that I crossed the boundary by reaching out to her. I genuinely felt at a loss and wondered if breaking up was the only option. Now, he occasionally helps with cleaning and buys some food, which I consistently express gratitude for. I began reading the book, Let Them Theory, which has assisted me in keeping my feelings to myself, and I recognize I cannot control when he chooses to take action, making things more manageable at home. However, we now have what he refers to as our weekend fight because he claims I raise an issue every Saturday. To me, I fail to see how it constitutes a problem when it is a highly addressable concern. Context of today's argument. This week, my boyfriend and I made small adjustments for each other and enjoyed a harmonious period together. He took out the trash, I bought him coffee, we shared some media, and had quality time alone, which was lovely. Since the beginning, I have communicated to my boyfriend that physical touch is my primary love language. I feel extremely loved and secure when we connect physically. We used to cuddle frequently and also had a healthy sexual relationship. Now, we do neither. He allows me to rest my head on him during television time, which he considers cuddling, but to me, it feels more like merely leaning against him, and the connection does not feel as strong. This has been the case since September. This morning, like many weekend mornings recently, he was already up playing video games. Over the last 2 months, I have made several attempts to express during weekends. I was hoping we could have a chance to cuddle, or remember how I mentioned cuddling last weekend. Unfortunately, this led to a heated argument today. He began listing everything he has done for me in recent days and stated that there is no satisfying me. He also reminded me that I spoke to his mother a month ago and mentioned he has been experiencing stomach aches every Saturday and Sunday for months. Naturally, I began crying again. Emotions are simply part of who I am, and I explained that I cannot grasp how expressing my desire for cuddling has led to such an intense reaction. He deemed it ridiculous and insisted that I could not keep doing this, but my intention was not to initiate conflict. I merely wanted to feel close. It is deeply frustrating because when I refrain from making requests for changes or providing feedback, we are like best friends. However, the moment I highlight any issues, I am accused of being the one to bring up problems, resulting in tremendous fights, leaving me in tears and feeling compelled to apologize. This situation feels unjust. I simply long for open discussions and the ability to reach compromises. Even if he responded with a no, but suggested an alternative time, that would be far more satisfying than him merely rattling off all the nice things he has done for me. But also, I wonder if I should have simply remained silent about my desire for cuddling. I wish we could engage in genuine conversations, and I am uncertain of how to proceed.